You're scheduled for the Big Developers Conference in San Francisco next week is probably packed. But today organizers want to quickly suggest another great talk you might want to try and squeeze in. It's a really interesting GDC 2019 Summit talk, all about how the team at Dispute Players Tour playtest Battlefield V. Presented by Senior Engineer Jonas Gilbert under the name I4, testing the development of bots that play Battlefield V. Most notably, you will learn about the development of auto players, autonomous bots that are used for scenarios ranging from full 6-player soak tests to specific scripted test cases. You will also see Hope taking a pragmatic and solution-oriented approach to a complex problem led to a successful solution in a relatively short amount of time. Plus, Gilbert aims to show you how a strong focus on enabling end users to use the technology effectively will lead to unexpected but very interesting results for you and your team. Do not skip it. For more details on all the talks on offer at GDC this year, check out GDC 2019 session scheduler. There you can begin to lay out your GDC 2019, which takes place March 18th through the 22nd at the newly renovated Moscone Center in San Francisco. Bring your team to GDC. Register a group of 10 or more and save 10% on conference passes. Learn more here. For more details on GDC 2019, visit the show's official website, or subscribe to regular updates via Facebook, Twitter, OS. Gamasutra and GDC are sibling organizations under parent company and former websites designed in the 90s may look rudimentary and simple compared to those built today, but a lot of hard work went into creating a domain. Hardware was also relatively expensive during the infancy of the Internet. Families who could afford a single desktop computer usually delegated it to one section of the home. Because of this arrangement, queues usually had a limited amount of time to surf the web before having to opt off. So what was there to do online? Between playing Minesweeper or doodling in Microsoft Paint, many game developers who grew up with the Internet spent the bulk of their allotted time exploring Neopets, the virtual pet website, launched in 1999 that grew to be so much more. For Nina Freeman, a level designer at Fulbright and developer of the Internet-inspired C-Play and LostMemories.net, discovering how to create her own websites within Neopets was crucial to fostering her future in game development. I was using Neopets as a twin back in the early 2000s. I was super into their whole guild community and discovered web design and coding through that space. She explains, guilds housed players under a central theme, becoming a space where they could take part in activities usually associated with the theme of the guild and socialize. Oftentimes, guild themes held no relation to Neopets at all and were dedicated to TV shows, movies, and video games. Creating a guild was a lot like putting together a personalized web page, where users would format and lay out their homepage with HTML, and develop the aesthetic feel with custom CSS. For Freeman, she used the freedom of creating guilds to her advantage. I used to make silly anime graphics in Photoshop, and create custom layouts for strangers running guilds tours, she says, referring to the practice of exchanging website designs for other goods. We all post our layouts for these guilds on forums, or sometimes even on our own websites, so that people could download and share them. The flexibility guilds offered paved way for many other developers when it came to discovering how to code. since developing a website was, in many ways, the first time they were exposed to the concept of programming. This whole scene is what really got me into coding. Freeman continues. If I really think about how I got into game development, I think I did trace my path all the way back to those days spent making guild layouts of Neopets. I really cultivated my love for games. Having gone on to experiment with games around internet culture and forming relationships online, it's easy to see how the site ended up guiding Freeman's work. Discovering that those skills transfer over into game design was pivotal for a number of game developers Gamasutra contacted, including Lyndon Reed, a programmer at Procedural Reality, working on limit theory. My story with programming and game development starts with Neopets. My first ever experience coding was on Neopets. You could customize your profile page with simple HTML and CSS. Reed explains. I had never coded before, because programming looked so intimidating. But the coding in Neopets was so simple and non-threatening and facilitated creative expression. Reed adds, I went on to experiment with web development outside of Neopets too, thanks to the foundation of skills I learned from it. Reed eventually went on to form a student organization in college called Women in Computer Science, which put together a 4-8-hour game jam and enlisted the help of industry professionals to volunteer during the event. It turned out that one of the volunteers had actually worked on the creative systems in Neopets that Reed had learned to code with during their adolescence. Having a developer who was a part of the reason that I now develop games volunteer at my event has been one of the highlights of my career so far, said Reed. I always cite Neopets when people ask me how I got into coding, and because of Neopets, coding has always been a tool for creative expression for me. Kevin Snow, a narrative designer currently working on Southern Monsters, has similar thoughts about the accessibility of backend tools helping to shape his technical prowess at an early age. I played Neopets from 2001 to 2003 or so, and I learned how to write HTML through the customizable home pages and storefronts on Neopets. Snow says, Neopets forums were ripe with a community of users eager to help one another around when it came to building these web pages, posting tutorials on tips on how to change the size and style of fonts, or get a specific image to load without having it break. I started off copying and pasting code, then modifying it, then writing it myself. He adds, Snow felt encouraged to seek out solutions through trial and error, browsing through threads online to see how those before him solved that issue and trying it out himself until it worked. I did not. I feel that teaching myself that skill through online tutorials and troubleshooting was a major help for my art as an adult. Snow says, I have taught myself how to write C#, CSS, and JavaScript because it made me confident early in my abilities to learn. Just like her fellow developers, Sophie Manson, a narrative designer at Arcade Studios, agrees that Neopets was her first exposure with HTML and CSS, and by extension, thinking critically about how systems actually worked. I was about 9 years old when I joined Neopets, she says. It was a pretty rudimentary browser game at the time, with simple, almost naive graphics and a minimalist interface. But for Manson it was Neopets' minimalist interface which sparked curiosity and helped foster the desire to create, which many developers went on to cultivate through their own work. Since most of my actions were just clicking on hyperlinks, This was the first time I felt like I could see the seams and stitches of a game, and the logic behind it was not daunting to me. Madison explains. Neopets is also where I first learned to use HTML and CSS, designing layouts, files, and profile pages. Having the ability to manipulate code was not the only feature that sparked creativity inside developers within Neopets. Was the Neopets Adventure Generator, a tool that worked similar to the Choose Your Own Adventure engine, like mine. The product of this generator, appropriately titled Adventures, were text-based games which included instructions on set the scene for the story the user would embark on. Clicking on links would lead to separate passages, where there were typically 1 to 4 options for what to do next. Just like Twine, Neopets Adventure Generator allowed fledgling developers to change font colors to denote different choices, or choose background colors to establish a mood.